All right, let's jump in. Well, hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're really glad to have you. William and I have been looking forward to this event for a while now. We love any chance we get to show off the really cool stuff that Pacific Life is doing with our platform partners like Employee Navigator. Our target audience for today is really anyone who's interested in learning more about Pacific Life's workforce benefits in general, and or specifically how we partner with Employee Navigator. So obviously we partner with many platforms, but what we've built with them is truly unique and special. So we're looking forward to showing you that. As we go along the way, I do want to encourage you to put your questions into the chat. Those will only be seen by me and my fellow host. There should be plenty of time at the end for us to answer those. So we want to encourage some chat along the way and make sure you're asking your questions as we go. We've got a great session in store for you today. We're going to discuss a little bit about Pacific Life, why we made the decision to enter into this space, how we're leading with a fully digital experience, some of the exciting capabilities that we've co-built with Employee Navigator. But before we do that, allow me to introduce myself and my co-presenter for the day. So for those who don't know me, my name is TJ Clayton, and I am the VP of New Business Acquisition here at Pacific Life, which means I have a whole host of teams responsible for all things underwriting, onboarding, and enrollment. We're responsible for helping accelerate growth with our brokers and our clients and providing a best-in-class experience for brokers, clients, and end consumers through that entire quote to enroll process. So I have about 15 years of experience in this industry in various roles, from billing to customer service to enrollment, and now underwriting and onboarding. You'll see there, notably, I have a few degrees, but most notably a degree in philosophy, because everyone knows that Plato and Aristotle had so much to say about employee benefits. So there you go. I live in Columbia, South Carolina, and if you know anything about me, you know I love live music of all kinds. So if you have any new music or anything you're really digging, please hit me up and let me know. And with that, William, I'm going to let you introduce yourself to our audience today.
Perfect. Thanks, TJ. Name's William Fetter, Strategic Relationship Manager to our technology partners as well as our general agencies. Been with Pacific Life coming up on 3 years. Been in the industry a little over 15 as well, solely focused on enrollment technology. So I've worked at a few different Ben admins, doing everything from running sales teams, marketing, implementation, case building. Here at Pacific Life, what I focus a lot of my time on is working with our brokers, our general agencies, our internal sales team, explaining our different enrollment strategies, our different integrations, best type of enrollment strategy to use. Also with our account managers, sales coordinators, just making sure everyone at Pacific Life understands our deep integrations we have with different Ben admins. Hold a bachelor's degree from the University of New England in business administration and management. Live about 2 hours north of Boston in Brunswick, Maine, and enjoy fishing and hunting. So feel free to send any good fish or hunting pics my way.
Yeah, William, I've seen your pics. You're quite the sportsman. So there's a myth going around about you that you once wrestled an elk with your bare hands while
It's
doing
true.
an Employee Navigator demo. Is that true? Is that
Very
true?
true. Absolutely.
Okay.
I was in the
I
woods and
did.
did it. Yep.
All right. Yeah. Good. Awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks for the introduction. Now, let me take a minute and just sort of introduce Pacific Life. Many of you probably know Pacific Life from TV commercials. If you watch college sports or the PGA Tour, you've seen our commercials, you've seen the whale, and those are really cool. It's really fun to be watching something and see your company on there. If you're not familiar with Pacific Life beyond that, there's no surprise because we are new to the workforce benefits industry. We are a 160-year-old mutual company headquartered out of Newport Beach, California, which is seen in the picture here. We have a pretty rich and eventful history. One of my favorite historical facts about Pacific Life is that the first president of the company was a gentleman by the name of Leland Stanford. And so if you're putting two and two together, you're thinking Southern California, Leland Stanford. He was the founder of a somewhat known university called Stanford University. He was also the governor of California at one point, maybe even while he was president of Pacific Life. So that's a really, really cool, rich history there. But another interesting fact about Leland Stanford is when he passed away, his widow actually used his life insurance policy, the proceeds from his policy, to float the university's payroll. They were on some hard times, and they used that to float the payroll. Another fun fact about Pacific Life is we were the first company west of the Mississippi to use the UNIVAC One computer system for digital business applications. So that idea of sort of investing in new adventures, exploring new opportunities is sort of built into the DNA of Pacific Life. About every 10 to 5 years, I think Pacific Life kind of gets a little bored, a little restless, and they're sitting on some capital and they decide, hey, let's launch into a new space. And it's always successful. And likewise, about 4 or 5 years ago, Pacific Life was wrestling with the decision of entering into the workforce benefit space. And there was a strong evaluation whether to buy or build. And ultimately, we made the decision to build. It's not often that a carrier gets the chance to launch something like this from scratch. And so we jumped on it. And about 3 years ago, me and 30 of my closest friends, we started putting our hands on keyboards and built our team and built our product and built our infrastructure and all that stuff. And now here we are in 2026, 3 years later, with a full product portfolio across the nation, including life, dental, vision, disability, sub-health, and more to come. And we're fully integrated with industry-leading platforms like Employee Navigator. So that's a little bit about Pacific Life. Let's talk about sort of what we've built and kind of where we're going. We set out with a vision to be a tech-forward insurance carrier in an industry that's really not known for technology or innovation. The industry has been talking for some time about API development as the future of this industry, and we really sought to embrace that as sort of our starting point, sort of our baseline. And so in 2023 and in 2024, we participated in this research study co-authored by Limra, Loma, and Ideon, and we're really proud of the scores we achieved relative to our peers in the industry. As you see on the screen, we really outpaced the industry when it comes to API adoption, execution, and the various components of enrollment. This was the second year in a row that we participated in this study with industry-leading results. However, it wasn't just about the scores, but it was about the actual outcomes. There's kind of a common punchline in this industry that if you don't build an API correctly, all you're doing is moving bad data quicker. You're moving bad data in real time. And while I sometimes feel like that's like maybe an excuse not to lean into APIs and build them out, it actually is true. And so not only did we set out to be a digital tech-forward insurance carrier, we set out to solve real-world problems. It wasn't enough just to say that we had APIs, but those APIs needed to solve real problems for our brokers, our clients, and our end consumers. Those problems that we know have plagued our industry for decades upon decades, which meant they needed to be connected to a modern digital benefits platform. And that's what we did. We knew this industry had long been plagued by problems with billing, claims management, onboarding, lead times for case setup with enrollment platforms, and we set out to solve those problems. And one of the biggest advantages we had was having everything connected with one digital benefits platform. So everything we do from quote all the way around that wheel to claim is housed within one platform, which drives a ton of value. And we're going to go into some of that value in a second. But if there's no other valuable thing, is that you only have to tell us something one time. You give us a piece of information at time of quote or prospecting, and that information is housed with our system forever. It sort of travels throughout the entire journey. And you can envision how powerful that is for what we built. So when we're saying we're developing APIs, we're doing it in a system where everything is connected, which means when we build an API is to drive real value somewhere else, and in claims and billing and other parts of the industry. One example, we set out to really change the way we bill in our industry. My colleague Sarah Milnes had this brilliant idea of really sort of why don't we bill like every other industry that we all interact with in our daily lives, and instead of traditional billing, which asks clients to predict who's going to be on a roster and then pay in advance, and then if someone terms or adds, we do a true up or a credit or a debit the next month, and it can get really hairy, it can get really ugly really quickly. And we decided to eliminate that and simply bill in arrears for the coverage period for which someone is covered. So that's cool just in and of itself. But even better, when we have an API-enabled platform, a client can have a term or an ad on the last day of the month, And then you combine that with the fact that we're billing on the first day of the month for the previous month. They can have a term or an ad on like the last day of the month. And when we draw a bill on the next business day, that bill is going to accurately reflect that ad and that term that was just completed a day or two before it. And so that's just one example of some of the stuff we're doing. The other thing you'll find as a result of having this digital ecosystem is that we have no client size, we have no product limitations on when an API can be used. All of our products are housed in one platform. We don't have our life over here and the disability over here. It's all in one platform. And so there's no limitations on when you can run an API, when you can use it. And not all of our competitors can say that, and we can. And there's no gotchas on sort of when you can use our APIs and when you can't. So that's just another benefit of having that digital ecosystem that's fully connected throughout the whole value chain. So let's take it a little bit further. What I have here is an image, what I like to call sort of the race to the starting line. And what I mean by that is your clients, if you're a broker on here or a GA or enrollment firm, your clients and their employees often don't experience Pacific Life until that very first enrollment experience. But everything we do to the left is really, really important. It's sort of getting ready for that main event, if you will. And we really set out to make that as quick and digital and self-serve as possible. Gone are the days where we need 3 to 5 weeks and 4 phone calls with 18 different people from the bin admin, from the carrier, from the TPA, from the client, just to complete an onboarding process. What we've built is fully digital, fully self-serve, so you can move at your own pace. And everything is electronic, e-sign, DocuSign, and so it really provides a seamless and quick experience at the pace you want it. In just a few minutes, I'm actually going to turn it over to William, and he's going to show you how quick and easy it is to go from nothing to enrollment ready in Employee Navigator. And when you combine that with our digital onboarding process, you can go from sold to enrollment ready in as little as 2 to 3 business days. And I've seen it happen many, many times. I've seen it happen even quicker than that. Now, I will say this. We do love when we have a little bit more lead time than that. I like to have a few weeks, a couple weeks leading up to OE, where we can have a good enrollment strategy, proper planning, we can educate employees, and we would provide a really good purchasing, buying experience. But that said, if you're in a pinch and you need a solution, no one can move quicker than Pacific Life plus Employee Navigator. And so how fast is fast? Well, obviously, there's sort of this one-time process that we call contract licensing and appointment that everyone does, right? So if you're not contracted, licensed, and appointed with us now, I definitely recommend you reach out to your local Pacific Life rep and get that done, get that out of the way. Once that's out of the way, you see sort of the rest of the process here on the screen. And we're talking 1 day for notification of sale, marked as sold, and digital implementation. If everyone's engaged and everyone's on their toes, we can get this done in less than a day. I've seen it done in less than an hour and a half, actually. So it can be done. And then beyond that, if you're working with us plus Employee Navigator, case setup and open enrollment is done within less than a day. And you're going to see that in just a minute. Finally, before I turn it over to William, so what are we talking about here? What is this sort of magic API that does the case setup? As you're going to see in a few minutes, what we've built with Employee Navigator, you often have to choose between speed and accuracy. And you can either move quick or you can move correctly, but rarely can you do both. But what we've built between Pacific Life and Navigator allows you to do both. And so in just a few minutes, you're going to see with a few clicks of a button how quickly we transmit company details, benefit information, rates, plan provisions, coverage options, all that stuff in just a very short amount of time. And so with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to William, and he's going to walk us through a bit of a demo. So we'll sort of transition here.
Perfect. I take it, TJ, everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. So I want to level set a little. What I'm going to show today is that case setup API TJ was speaking about in Employee Navigator. So 2 things here I want you to remember. For this demo, just imagine master apps are signed, cases issued in our policy admin system. You are ready to pull that case setup API. Other thing I did before this webinar is I created a case shell in Employee Navigator. Takes about 10 to 15 seconds. Just added company name, address, city, state, zip, SIC code, tax ID. I'm going to be acting as the case builder broker in Employee Navigator. So first step I'm going to take here is click Add Integration. I am going to search for Pacific Life. Just note, I am in our test environment. I am not in production. When you do search for Pacific Life in production, you will only have one option. I'm going to click Initiate Integration, and I'll search for that case shell that I created before, New Harbor Tide and Tackle. I'll go ahead and click Save and go to subscription. Going to click Save and Continue. Save and Continue. Here's all that information, like I said, that I used to create the case shell. Pretty simple stuff: company name, address, city, state, zip, tax ID, SIC code. Going to click Save and Complete. Then I'm going to click Manage. Once the case builder clicks Manage, that's what kicks off the API process. So what's cool is when your case builders click that, our partner management team receives a Teams message and an email that you've gone ahead and done that. All we have to do on our side of Navigator is enter in the group number. So I'm doing that on my other screen. We do process these requests in less than 24 hours, and that's kind of that timeline that you might have to wait about 24 hours for the case. A lot of times we are processing these a lot quicker than 24 hours. We understand when you start building a case, you really don't want to stop. You want to go start to finish. So again, we get that Teams message, we get that email that we have to go enter in that group number. I've done that on my other screen. Again, it's a very quick process. So now I'm going to go over to our benefits tab. I'm going to click Add Plan. So typically what a lot of brokers, case builders, what you're doing in Nav is you're building a plan from scratch. So you're looking at a carrier's proposal, searching for those rounding rules that aren't in a proposal, searching for, waiting periods, stuff like that. Or maybe you're copying an existing plan and then changing it for that specific case. With Pacific Life, you're always going to click Build a Plan via Carrier API. So what's cool is when I click that, what's happening right here is Employee Navigator is communicating to our policy admin system and pulling in the sold plans on the case. So you can see we have accident, dental, voluntary life, and voluntary AD&D. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add on these plans. Go ahead and click Save and Continue. Click Save. This is the longest part of the process. Probably takes about 8 to 10 seconds to save those plans to the company shell. You'll see I love the speed of the API. I've built on dozens of different Ben admins for many different carriers in my past. The speed is great, but as TJ was saying, the data accuracy is the game changer. We're removing that human error. A lot of your case builders are trying to build 3 and 4 cases a day. They're staring at proposals, staring at rates. That's when errors happen, basically. We want to remove that human touch, those possibility for error. So that's why we created this. There are a few manual steps you do have to do. We wish it could absolutely do everything for you, but it is very minimal. We're going to go over to the settings tab. We're going to map the class structure. So I do have a class in my demo case right here. We do send over class structure on the API. We understand, though, you might have a very specific class structure for medical and stuff like that. It is not going to mess up anything on our side for you to select your own class structure. So class 1 was my class in there. I'm going to click Apply, Save. I'll go back to my Benefits tab, and we can take a look at the dental. You can see it's ready to be turned on for enrollment. That's really how quick it is, but I want to show you everyone what came over on the Case Setup API. So you can see here everything detailed on our Policy Information tab. If I go to Eligibility Enrollment, go to Eligibility Rules, we are sending over everything from coverage waiting period, termination date, rehire rules, demographic change rules. Everyone always loves this on the dental for the benefit summary. Comes pre-filled out. So typically your case builders, are staring at proposals on a dental proposal and looking for every single one of these provisions, where with us, a matter of a few clicks of a button, it all comes over preloaded. If I go over to costs and go to composite rates, you'll see we have our coverage tiers, we have our monthly rates. I can go back to policy info. I can click turn on enrollment, click confirm. Go back to our benefits tab. You'll see we have our yellow plugin, which turns green once we would set our open enrollment dates. You can see the status plan is complete, enrollment is active. The other three benefits are very similar. Again, there are a few manual steps. For example, our voluntary life tied with the voluntary AD&D. With our products, the benefit amounts always have to match. So you do have to go into the voluntary AD&D and set a rule. It's a checkbox. So those benefit amounts will always match. We have some great PDFs and tips and tricks to ensure that those couple manual steps you do need to do. That's about it. TJ, I'm going to pass it over to you, and we can finish up the slides and then go into some Q&A.
Awesome. Let me reshare my screen here. You always do that a lot quicker than I think you're going to do it, and I should never be surprised because that's how easy and quick it is.
That's how quick it is.
Yeah, so I get the question or the comment of, "Hey, that's too good to be true," we always try to tell people, "Hey, what you saw is what you have to do. We don't do the Good Morning America sort of bake the cake before we start the show and sort of show you, steps and stuff like that. Everything you saw is everything you have to do." So we get it's too good to be true. In fact, I was with a group of brokers last week, and one of them, I was doing a similar presentation. One of them said, "Yeah, your rep was showing me this, and William was showing me this, and I thought it was too good to be true." So I threw you guys sort of a messy case on Employee Navigator, and he said my team came back and said, never make us work with anyone else. If we can go with Pacific Life, we want to put everything with them because they make it super simple and easy. So if you're wondering, if you're doubting, all I can say is give us a shot, and we'd love to prove any of the doubters wrong. So thanks, William. As you guys saw, it's a breeze. It's super simple. So obviously we know that there's life after set up and open enrollment sort of. So we want to just take a couple minutes. I got a couple more slides and just walk you guys through sort of what comes next in the process. So as you all know, if you work with Employee Navigator doesn't have enrollment and eligibility API. They have a full XML EDI. And I'm not sure the cadence that most carriers are getting that full snapshot of their clients, but we get it twice a week. So we get a full snapshot of every client, every customer twice a week. And that means that our systems are really never more than 48 hours out of sync with Employee Navigator, right? So we're trying to take that XML and in lieu of having an API, try to recreate the API experience where our systems are constantly in sync with one another. After we do that, every Tuesday we post our enrollment errors if there are any. We post that to the broker portal, and you can go in and manage your errors. We definitely want to encourage people to do that, to stay on top of that for billing and coverage purposes. So that's available every Tuesday. And then I want to talk just real quick about our E of I process. We actually had a question in the chat that I'm going to go ahead and start to address. So a question from Jill. She asked, do we have plans to have a return decision via API back to Employee Navigator? The answer to that is yes, we absolutely plan to have that. We are actively in conversations with Employee Navigator, trying to get our sort of dev schedules squared up, but trying to make that happen because we do have E of I APIs with a couple other platforms, and we definitely want to have that with Employee Navigator. And so working on that for sure. In the meantime, what we do have is a fully digital E of I process. We came out of, I told you earlier, we came out of the gate and we wanted to be a tech forward, industry leading sort of technology insurance carrier. And so we drew a line and said, we're not going to do paper apps. One of my first jobs in this industry was getting some of those paper apps and highlighting them, returning them in a prepaid postage envelope and getting those back and forth. We didn't want to get into that business. Everything we do is purely digital. That said, post-enrollment, if you were to select above GI, you get a personalized link to your email. And again, I talked about earlier, all that data you tell us, it persists through the process. When you click that personalized link, it's going to log you in and it's going to give you all the information we've already collected about you, and you're just going to confirm it. And then you're going to answer a couple questions, and 90% of those, within a couple minutes of a couple questions, 90% of those are decisioned right there on the spot. And so we have this really cool, slick, beautiful digital E of I process. If you want to see it, you can scan that QR code, and it'll take you to a YouTube video that shows just a couple minutes long. It shows you our E of I process, what it looks like, and definitely want to encourage folks to go there. And then be on the lookout for E of I API with between Pacific Life and Employee Navigator to come in the very near future. So if you're liking what you're hearing and you want to move forward, I want to just share a couple of tips sort of that'll set you up for success. So before you begin building with Pacific Life and using our plan build API, we do need to have your master application signed. Now, as a reminder, that is a e-sign, DocuSign process. It's electronic, it's instant. And once you do that, your case is ready to start building. What we don't need is when you sign the master apps, we don't need another 2 to 3 week lead time to be able to run the API. We hear that sometimes. That's not us. As soon as we get the master app signed, which has all those details in it that we're going to pass over on the API, as soon as we get that signed, we're off to the races and we're ready to start building, and we can do the 10-minute enrollment bill or case build that William showed you. But we got to get that signed first. We do have an enrollment setup form that if you're working with us, we're going to ask you to put a contact on there, and our onboarding team and our client solutions team are going to use that as the contact when we're ready to build, and as a contact for any issues or any concerns or anything that you want to know sort of going forward. We do have a lot of helpful resources required for the very, very few manual steps that William showed you. So we know that our process, while it's really cool, it's really quick, it's really easy, it's different, right? And sometimes different is just different. And so you might need sort of just a reminder of click here, click here, click here, and the 1 or 2 steps of mapping the classes and connecting the life and AD&D. And so we have a very helpful resource that will walk you through that. And finally, clients are typically enrolled within 48 hours, which helps us avoid, needing to build plans manually. Again, things are different with us, even though they're quicker and better. We know they're different, and there might be this sort of tendency to fall back on old ways and try to get in there and manually build a case. And we just encourage you, don't do that. Don't use your time to build a case manually. Trust us, and you've seen what we can do, and trust the process, and we'll get it done very quick. Finally, before we move to Q&A, I do just want to say that if you are a broker on this call, or you're a GA, or you're an enrollment firm, if you're not the person who actually does the case building, we really want you to share this information with your team. One of the biggest pitfalls that we see is we get people who are producers and they get super excited about what we've built, and they go back and they tell their teams, hey, we're going to put some stuff with Pacific Life because what they had built is best in class. It's really good, and so we want to work with them. But they don't connect the dots with sort of how we do things. And so then we get a case with that broker, or that GA, or that distribution partner, and the build teams go in there and manually do it, and then inevitably, maybe mess something up or miskey a rate or something like that. And then all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, you told us your process was really cool, and we didn't connect the dots between the producer and the build team. So that's one of our biggest pitfalls. I want to encourage you guys to make the connections, and this webinar will be recorded. So definitely provide your build teams with this information. Finally, we have 2 documents at the bottom that you can scan the QR codes and get access to those. The first one is our Ben Admin Case Setup Guide. We have some very, very thorough, really, really good documentation on how we work with every platform that we work with. And so you can get that as a PDF, scan to get it, and that's your resource for how we work with everyone, and some really good guides on helping you get started and being successful in working with Pacific Life and other platforms. And then finally, if you liked what you saw with William and you want to see sort of a YouTube commercial version of that, that QR code on the bottom right will take you to a YouTube video that will show you exactly what William just did, and you can share it with your colleagues. You can share it with anyone, and we encourage you to do so. And so with that, that's it, guys. That's the 10-minute case build in a 30-minute to 45-minute webinar. And we hope you enjoyed it. We are going to move on to a Q&A if we have any. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, I think, and see what kind of Q&A we have.
Perfect. Thanks, TJ. So it does look like we have the question we always get asked: does the vol life and voluntary AD&D have to be set up separately? You want me to answer, TJ?
Yeah,
You?
I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it does have to be set up separately. That is how we send it over from our policy admin system to Employee Navigator on that case setup API. We have heard that from numerous brokers. We do have our dev team looking at it to possibly see about combining it. But for right now, we do have to send that over as two separate benefits.
Got it.
Um, Great. Next question. This is from Michael. The 2 times per week enrollment data is then fed into the billing system for basically in arrears. Is the billing the same single platform, or do you use another system? So answer is yes, we do use the same system basically. And that's kind of what TJ was showing in the beginning, that everything is housed in that one policy admin system. We don't have multiple policy admin systems for all of our products. Everything is housed in that one system.
Awesome.
There,
I will jump
Go ahead,
on one
TJ.
here. So I referenced Jill asked a question about E of I return decisions via API, and
Mhm.
I jumped on that part of her question during the presentation. She also asked another part about Cobra eligibility being supported on our integration. Cobra eligibility is not currently supported on our integration. It's something that we're working on. Again, we stood up sort of this entire insurance company from scratch in 18 months, and we just had to kind of prioritize sort of where we pick things off. And so that is one thing that's not currently supported on our eligibility feed and data feed from Employee Navigator, but it's definitely on our radar to fix. We can support it, but it's in a little bit of different way than maybe some other people do. So good question, Jill. Didn't want to skip over that part. Um, Somebody asked, will the recording of the session be available to share with my team? Yes, the answer is yes. We'll probably be able to post that on LinkedIn and maybe through an email distribution. So be on the lookout for that.
Another one just came in. TJ, does the migration allow for salary updates such as policy renewal or at event date?
That's a good question. I believe so. I believe we have multiple options for salary updates at different events. The answer, I'm going to go with yes. I'm pretty sure the answer to that is
Yeah.
yes.
And we did this past fourth quarter just go live. I believe we are one of the only carriers that has the renewal API with Employee Navigator as well.
Yes.
So when you are getting ready for open enrollment the following year, there is a renewal button on each policy. You click that and it brings in everything new from our policy admin system. So you don't have to update manually effective dates and if there are any other changes. Yeah.
Awesome. Not a question,
Uh,
but I will just
yeah.
thank you, Katya. I think it's Katya for the shout out. This is amazing, and thank you so much. Thank you for attending. We really enjoyed it.
Another one, TJ, will the broker slash case builder be notified when we can pull the case setup API?
Yes, yeah, I think William might have touched on that, but you will be notified. Again, we have an enrollment setup form, so it's important that we know who to notify. It's important to get that filled out, but most definitely, we reach out and we say, hey, we're ready to go. And I think as William said, usually that's done within less than a day of sort of hitting that activation button. My team is monitoring Teams messages and emails, and they have one quick click they have to do on their end, and then they will notify the appropriate parties that it's ready to go.
What percentage of the case build information does the
Oh,
API bring over on your policy admin system? I think we've done the math. Our partner management team did. It's about 99% of the case build information. I mean, like I said earlier, rates, rounding rules, coverage tiers, eligibility waiting periods. We gather probably more than other carriers. We gather more information up front so we can send it over on that case setup API. I mean, we're going as far as even contributions on plans, stuff like that. So again, there are those few manual steps, class structure, matching, voluntary
yeah,
life, voluntary AD and benefit amounts, but it is sending over about 99% of the case build information.
nice. Yeah, that was going to be my answer too. I was looking here. Larry says I'm a case builder and the API works great. Thanks for that shout out, Larry. Michael says that our integration with the Nav is great. Are we connected with other platforms? Are they as smooth? And he also, I think he was trying to answer our question for us. He said 99% of the case build is done via the API. So thanks, Michael. Your question is, are we connected to other platforms? Absolutely connected to other platforms. What I will say is we can only do what platforms can do, right? So we set out to build an API where almost all the time where a platform has an API, we've built to it. So if there are other platforms out there that have a case setup API, we've built to that. One of the challenges is not many do. We would love if more platforms had that capability for sure. Where platforms have an enrollment or eligibility API, we've built to it, and we are working on those EFI APIs. So, the easiest answer to your question, Michael, is we're connected to pretty much, we can work with anyone. We're connected to a lot, and where there's an API, we try to do it. So. And then thank you, Lynn. That was sweet. Lynn, who asked the Cobra and the EFI API session question, said that we're wonderful and attentive. I think she was talking about you, William, not me. But said Pacific Life's integration is smooth versus other carriers. So thanks, Lynn. We really appreciate that. Awesome. People looking forward to their first case with us after this webinar. So that's awesome. We'd love to hear that. All right. We'll entertain a couple more questions. They're starting to slow down. William, do you see anyone? Oh, this is a good one. So the question from Natasha is, I've seen carriers ask that we give them 10 business days to respond to our request to update the new plans for the following plan year. Pacific Life have such a time frame. Other carriers also ask that we complete OE at least 15 days prior to the group's renewal effective date. In case, is that the case with Pacific Life? So William, I might need your help here on the first part. We don't have a requirement for completing OE 15 days prior to the renewal effective date. Obviously, we'd love to complete OE prior to the effective date. If that's if it's 1 day, 2 days prior to the effective date, then we can work with that. As we said, every Tuesday and Thursday, that information is or Monday night, sort of into Tuesday morning and Thursday, that information is going to feed into our systems, and so we don't need a lead time prior, a certain amount of lead time prior to the effective date. So that's good, and I don't believe we need anything like the 10 business days to respond to a request for the following plan year. Again, it's just all I would say is it's about being planful, right? So be planful. Do your due diligence, properly plan for a proper OE and all that stuff. But as far as we're concerned, we don't need sort of the 10 business day lead time to build anything or integrate anything or pull down a test file or anything like that. So, yeah. Awesome. All right. We are right about 5 minutes away. Any one last question before we move to close here? If not, or if some questions sort of trickle in as we're closing out, we'll try to address those through some other means. But let me just say, hey, thank you to everyone for taking your time. I love the engagement. The questions are just a perfect sign of the interest in what we're building, the need that we believe we're solving for in the marketplace. And so thank you for your engagement. Thank you for taking the time. If you have any questions about working with Pacific Life and Employee Navigator or anything else, then please don't hesitate to reach out to me and William, and we'd be happy to answer any further questions. But thank you. I see a live music share in there in the chat. Thank you so much, Larry. I'm going to check that out as soon as I get off of here. I hope everyone has a good rest of your Tuesday and a great rest of your week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.